This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacy Cole, and Todd Michaels.
We're talking about Nobody's Girl, Virginia Giuffre's book that is out right now posthumously, telling her story, her life story of life before Epstein, with Epstein, after Epstein, and the damage that was done to her, and then the life that she tried to lead with all of that damage that was done by these soul ripper things. It's anyone want to call them people. Robin Dreeke, retired FBI Special Agency for the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, is with us. We were just talking in our first segment about Ghislaine Maxwell and how could she participate in this? How could she be part of the recruiting? I think one of the shocking parts of the book is the fact that Virginia herself talks about how she too eventually participated in the recruiting of other girls for Epstein to her own detriment. Let's break down that transparency that she has about this. Obviously, Ghislaine's always denied any of this, but Virginia flat out says, yeah, I was part of this and I did this. Let's talk about that and how she came to that, not necessarily realization, but feeling safe enough to say that out loud, almost as a warning to others out there.
Yeah, she was very transparent on the fact that Ghislaine would tell her, go out. So they would send her out. So as soon as she established enough trust with them that they could let her out of their sight and send her places and to do things, especially when she went to when they paid for her to go to Thailand to get certified as a Thai masseuse, they sent her on a targeting mission. They actually identified someone in Thailand they wanted to try to recruit, and Ghislaine was calling her every single day. And that's where that pressure was applied from Ghislaine all the time. The pressure of wanting to and needing to satisfy her demands that's being placed on her, and a nonstop fear, an implied fear of retribution against family, against yourself, and against exposure for not complying, because that's what traffickers will do. They'll guilt you into things, they'll shame you into things, and they'll hold things above you. They took photos of all the girls, and so that's exactly what was going on, was that exertion of that power and control that Ghislaine then had psychologically over her, because she was the orchestrator of everything. Mm-hmm. Oh, and there's a comment there about the baby farm that I saw too. Yeah, so they actually, Jenna had reached the point where they trusted her enough that they approached her, both Ghislaine and Epstein together, to father Epstein's child. And they were going to set her up for life by carrying the baby, and that she was going to sign over all rights to the child. And they're going to and they gave her a dollar amount, exactly what they're going to pay her every month then to sustain. And that's what actually sent her over the edge to actually flee.
A baby farm.
Yep.
For those who have not read the book and you're trying to understand, I mean, what the hell does that mean?
They wanted her to father his children because he thought he was genetically superior to everyone. Again, very Hitler-like, very cult-like. And so their plan was to father a next generation of children that was all going to be part of the Epstein cabal. No kidding.
I mean, is this an idea of they're going to start creating young people that are going to go out into the world and do whatever they're going to do with the super wonderful intelligence of Jeffrey Epstein? Or is this let's start raising them from a very young age and grooming them literally from birth so Jeff can do horrible things to them?
They never explained it, but that's what she was contemplating.
Oh my God.
She said, the only thought that went through her mind was, my God, what happens if I have a baby girl?
Oh God.
Because she'd been because according to her, she's abused by her father. So she's already been down that road too. And that's what it was too much for her. So she agreed and ran. because she wanted to get them to get the hell away from her. And it's interesting too. So here's what was really so telling also about how she was regarded. So here they are. They trust her to go out and recruit girls, but a lot of them were. They trust her that they actually paid for her to be away for like 6 months to get the certification as a masseuse, like she always wanted. So they were giving her reward of this. They then trust her enough. And according to her, she thinks she was the first one that was ever offered this deal to become the baby farm mama. And then, so when she's over in Thailand going through the certification, she meets Robbie, her husband. And within weeks, they get married, and he tells her that you have to call Epstein and Maxwell and end it. And she calls her, Ghislaine, and tells her, and then she gets a call from Epstein who says, all right, have a great life. Click. So after all this, after all the trust, all the confidence, where she's thinking that I'm this very, very important person, what's the reverse optic? Nope, you're just a screwdriver. Next.
Yeah.
And she didn't have contact with him for 5 years. So literally, he called her on the phone and said, have a great life, click, no contact for 5 years. After all that. That's how much confidence he had, that he didn't have to maintain control of. In other words, he never thought this was a loose cannon. This wasn't an end that needed to be tied up. Total control of courts, total control of law enforcement, total control of images, of trafficking all these high-level friends and family and people in his life to all these girls, and never a worry in the world about it. That just shows that depth of confidence that this soul ripper had. That's what was really, because Tony, when you asked me about what was striking and stood out in the book, that's what really stood out in the book, was that depth of confidence that he had of getting away with it. And then so look at this. When you have that level of depth of confidence, because you own so many things, you have so much money, so much power, so much influence, and then when I did the research, the probability of suicide, it is so small. That's why you need that high level transparency from a level that you would trust that transparency coming from to say it wasn't a suicide, or that it was a suicide. Otherwise, you'd think it makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, obviously. And you got Epstein, you got Ghislaine. We don't really have other people around them that have gone down for any of this. Do you think that it was really just the two of them running this on their own? What we're describing here, what we're talking about, seems like a much larger infrastructure. Obviously, I mean, they obviously recruited these young girls. Obviously, Virginia talks about it in the book, how she went out and recruited for them per their request. Was it really just that small of a group of evil, of a group of soul rippers of Ghislaine and Giuffre, or are there more pieces to this puzzle? Are there more bricks in the infrastructure of what is Epstein Island and what we think of as this thing, this entity that was able to bring all these women in over the years, all these young girls over the years for Jeffrey Epstein's, enjoyment, quote unquote, and for those that he brought in with him.
So as Jenna describes it, from my understanding of the optic that she painted, was that the Epstein and Ghislaine were the two hub. They had staff. You had cooks, you had drivers, and you had pilots and people that were aware, but did the plausible deniability, like looking the other way. And I think from what I'm gathering from the book, again, all we have is Jenna's optic from the book, that they were probably given deals because they weren't directly involved. They were just, I would say they're knowledgeable, because Jenna even said, how could you not be knowledgeable of what was going around? People like the driver, she knows the driver that Epstein had, saw her naked. But he denied it. And so I think he had a peripheral, but the ones that were actually involved in the actual recruiting were the recruited. So that's exactly how they worked this pyramid scheme. And it was a pyramid. It was a female recruiting teenager pyramid scheme where Glenn would go in and you'd recruit one, and then that one was tasked with recruiting two. And so all the people that part of this infrastructure of sexual trafficking were the recruited. And they were all victims. And that's what was so tragic about this. I mean, they identified, I think, as she said in the book, I think about 200 girls that were victimized. And each one of those 200 girls were tasked with finding more. So it wasn't like they had a staff of Glenn's doing it. It was Glenn running it for Epstein by getting the other girls to do it. And here's where I think they were most likely working a statute of limitations on this, because at the time, I'm going to get this way wrong because I don't know the law on this as well. The statute of limitations, you had to actually be able to file lawsuits for being trafficked or sexual abuse or assault, and it expired within like a couple of years. Like you had to file like by the age of 22 or 23. But did you know the stats of a woman coming forward to having the courage and having done the internal work to diffuse that internal time bomb these people have in them only happens in their 40s?
Yeah.
And so they were using the law on their side of it. No one's going to say anything until statute of limitations is up, so we're safe. Oh my God, what a system.
It's insane. Virginia said in her book, if I'm ever found dead by suicide, never believe it. And now she's gone and the book is out. Coincidence?
So when I hit that point in the book, I was like, oh my God, this is, you got to look at the suicide. And the family didn't even put out what caused suicide. But then later in the book, she did have 2 attempts of suicide by overdose. And now what's not covered in the book is that and again, it's only rumor, and that you're seeing that she actually had a hidden diary of her relationship with her husband. And there's a lot of other things I think were not covered in her personal life in that book, but she was very clearly a person struggling and fighting hard for life. Is the best way. It's hard not to get misty talking about it. She was fighting hard for life, and for whatever reason, she didn't win. She loved her kids dearly. She loved life very dearly, but she was struggling. So
it's not impossible. I know she said that, and and I'm sure she believed it at the moment when she made that statement. Right. But to have the mental baggage and the trauma and the hell that she went through, it's not unbelievable in my mind. I think to think that her brain at some point, it was too much, and there were in a moment of whatever you want to call it. She was done and couldn't take anymore, couldn't process anymore. That's not a crazy thought that she, I think most people would have checked out far earlier, quite honestly.
There's a lot of things that she was working on. I mean, outside of the trauma itself, part of that trauma was the guilt. It wasn't just the trauma that was induced on her by Epstein. It was the guilt of recruiting girls that she was working through. And also the impact. She loved her kids so dearly, but she saw the media attention that was the negative attention it was bringing on them as well. So and I remember when she talked about her first suicide attempt, again, full transparency on all these things, and the mindset she was in of, I just need to be out of their lives. It's better for me not to be here. I mean, this is why she was struggling on all. She was being assaulted on all fronts about what's the worth of my life. And so it is understandable why she failed to keep herself alive, if that's indeed what happened.
Yeah. Stacy, what are we looking at from our comments right now?
Yeah, Shanna, I think it's Shanna. She's asking a question. She said, I'm not very familiar with any of this, but I have 2 questions. And the reason I'm bringing it up is maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with this. So her first question is, where were these girls' parents and family? And number 2, what are the ages of the young girls? So if we could narrow it down a little bit to that. Obviously, we know that these families are probably not the best families, so they weren't looking out for these kids. That's probably answer to number 1, right, Robin?
Yeah, pretty much. They were mostly coming from I'll say unhealthy backgrounds, unhealthy homes, and they were enticed in by money. First of all, that they got groomed. I say groom. It was a rapid grooming and social normalization that Ghislaine Maxwell would give them because they felt safe. Because like there's this one girl that Jenna talks about that got brought in, and Jenna even says it. Jenna said, "Hey, I'm going to bring you in to this house. If you want to, you get paid $200 to come in and give this old guy, a very rich guy, a massage. And the likelihood of him asking you to take your clothes off and do other things is pretty high." So she tried to counter her own guilt of doing what she's doing with the transparency. But I think what was happening, because the girl that they're talking to is also seeking to be approved, want to be part of a group because she's being ostracized. She's looking for money, needs money. I mean, all these things that the girl would say yes. And then she'd come in, and then Maxwell's in the room. Jen is in the room, and it must be normal. It must be okay because it's X, Y, and Z. So that was part of how they did what they did, is they normalized behavior by other people saying it's okay. By their actions, not even necessarily words. Their actions are saying this is okay. And when you're not anchored in healthy and what that looks like and what that expectation is, it's redefining what healthy is to people that don't know what it is yet. And that's what was happening. And they didn't know it. You don't know what, I mean, I've covered this in some of my espionage cases I've talked about before, where at a very young age, when someone is broken or gets broken like that, and their definition of love now becomes this abhorrent behavior, they don't know what normal is. Yeah. Jenna even talks about that when she she was overwhelmed when she met Robbie, her husband, because she actually loved him. She never had a choice of who she was going to be intimate with until that point in life. She didn't know what to do with that emotion. So that's what all these other girls are going through. They're being told what normal is, and that's what it became, because all these other girls are saying it must be, and I'm getting cash, and they're saying they're going to do this or this, they're treating me nicely. And what happens is they use that validation. Like a girl would service Epstein, and as they're leaving, she says, "You did a really fine job today. I think I see something special in you. I'm going to call you back, and just be on your cell phone. Oh, you don't have a cell phone? Here, take this cell phone. And here's $200. As a matter of fact, here's an extra $100. I'll call you tomorrow. I see something special in you." No one has ever said that to them before, and we're in.
It's like fishing. They set the hook.
Yeah. Front yard.
What else do we got here, Stacy?
Alicia says predators seem to always be looking for prey, and I think that's the one thing that I took from this entire story. But what I want to know, especially from you as a former FBI agent, what can we tell people to maybe watch for? Maybe we've got some friends who it's like, that relationship looks weird. Something's a little off. Are there huge red flags that we should be seeing?
Always. As always, transparency. Seek it in the people in your life. So had Jenna come from a household of healthy relationships where they were baselining what her normal communication was, because her communication with her family started falling off. Because what happens is you start hiding aspects of your life that you're ashamed to share. And so when you as an individual start seeing someone in your life becoming more isolated, less chatty, less sharing of what they're doing with their time, and it's by comparison, again, everything's an arc. Say someone comes home from school every day and you're used to, and you set up patterns of behavior with the people in your life you love. Every day when you come home from school, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. And at this certain time, we're going to tell me about your day. My wife did that. My kids came home every day. Tell me about your day. That was the first line out of our mouths every single day. Tell me about your day. And so we had a normal pattern of what we'd expect to hear every single day. Sometimes there'd be a blip if there's a bad thing, some teachers, grades, or whatnot. But then we had a pattern, a tempo. If all of a sudden you start noticing gaps of time, what's going on in that time? Matter of fact, when we're doing statement analysis and when doing behavioral assessment, if you're trying to assess someone, if they're hiding something, if they're trying to lie or obscure something, have them write down chronologically. Hell, just you say this is exactly what happened. Write down your day for me. Boom, 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 boom. You'll notice what happens is people write and do statements in chronological order, but also in time blocks. They generally write in 10 to 15 minute time blocks. I did this, then I did this, then I did this. What happens is all of a sudden you're analyzing, all right, every 15 minutes, and all of a sudden we're missing an hour.
What happened in that hour?
Where's that hour? Mm-hmm. That's what we do. That's where the red flags are, is when we have gaps of time that are unexplained, that they are trying to avoid, they don't want to talk about. And also, obviously, the changes in behavior of too much stress, discomfort, on talking about things or people where people just get closed off. There's always leakage when there's a change for the unhealthy. We just have to have the courage and ability and presence to be observant of it and then take action.
And that applies in pretty much every avenue of your life, not just in this kind of a horrific situation. If you have a relationship with somebody and there's time periods missing where they're unaccountable, that kind of thing, pay attention.
Yeah.
Something's going on.
I guarantee you something's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, it's something they're ashamed to tell you.
Bingo.
Which means there's a lack of transparency. Lack of transparency is not a healthy behavior. We need to talk about what's going on that makes you feel not safe to share that information with. Because if you don't feel safe to share that information, you fear retribution. So first, let's get off the retribution angle. Let's get off the shame angle. Let's just discuss what is this. Then we can both have a conversation about cause and effect of behaviors. Because obviously, if someone's doing something that's going to cause me to have a different reaction, you might not have been doing something healthy.
No.
Yep.
All giving our knowing glances and nods of, yep. And we're talking about lots of things in relationships.
Correct.
Yeah.
Bingo, Robin. Nailed it.
I feel like tensed up in this conversation because it's such a dark.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I think we'll wrap it up on that note. Nobody's Girl. It is out right now. It's a must read. If you want to have your eyes open to just the vile, soul ripping world that does exist out there. As much as some people want to pretend it doesn't, or because it's icky or it's scary or whatever, it's there. And this is about as raw of an account as you're ever going to find in it. Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. As always, thank you for coming on and giving your insights onto this topic. For everybody, for Stacy, for Todd, and myself, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.